Hello everybody, welcome back. I'm the Strategy Professor, and this is going to be my 7.11 tier list and metagame analysis video. I'm also going to have just a really quick preview, probably for the first 10 to 15 minutes, of the PvE changes. I don't usually talk a lot about the PvE because it can change a lot over the next couple of weeks, but I think there are some really exciting things. And if you want to go ahead and start practicing some champions that I think might be pretty good with these items, then now it might be a good time to go ahead and do that. But so on the docket here, we'll talk about the PvE a little bit first. We'll talk about metagame predictions for this patch, not necessarily for the 7.12, although I will mention some people that stand out to me in 7.12. So we'll talk about metagame predictions here. We'll talk about why I've been building Ardent Censer a lot more lately. I have a video linked from Apto, who's the #1 Korean solo queue player who talks a lot about support. I'm not going to go over everything that he talks about, but I'll give you the TLDR. You can watch it for yourself if you'd like. It's not very long. It's like 5 minutes or something. And then we'll go down here and we'll go into the tier list itself. Some people have shuffled around a little bit. Sona has shuffled around a lot, and we'll talk about why I think she's in a tier of her own. And she's basically must pick, must ban at this point. If you don't want to watch the entire video, I'm not sure how long it'll be. It'll probably be pretty good length. Then you can always find timestamps in the description to jump around to your favorite parts. You can also access this Google Doc in the description, and I'll have a link to my patch notes analysis video as well if you want to watch just kind of the play-by-play, what I think changed for just all of the changes. If you want to know about Rek'Sai, Kindred, Malzahar, all of the other stuff, just check out the patch notes video. It's got the timestamps as well, so you can skip around, and it's got the Google Docs, so you can get the TLDR, and I'll put a link to that up here post-production. But, okay, let's go ahead and jump in here. And just a real quick note, I always get a comment like this every few days or so. Oh, you know, you have great content, but your videos are so long. Can you make them shorter? The answer is I'm not going to go down that path. I do really in-depth analysis. It's very well researched, and I give you as much depth as I possibly can, which means the videos are going to be long. But I also have those timestamps and the Google Docs. You can skip around. It's like a buffet. If you don't have time to taste everything in the buffet, that's fine. Just find the parts that you want. I mean, you can turn this into a 15-minute video if you want. You know, just jump around to 15 minutes that you want to watch. Or you can watch it over multiple sittings. You know, you can watch 10 minutes per day for a week or something and probably get through the whole thing. But anyways, let's go ahead and get in there. So that's how I roll. I do in-depth analysis. I don't think there's hardly anyone else on YouTube that does it like I do, especially for the support role. So that's just how I do it. Okay, so awesome changes overall. I put a link here to the surrender at 20, and this might get updated. I'm sure it will in the future, but as of 6/3, June 3rd, as I'm recording this, these are the changes. So Karma is one that's going to be a pretty significant nerf. We'll talk about, you know, these numbers might change, but they are looking to nerf her. This Ivor nerf could be pretty brutal. I'm not going to be talking about the champions so much as these items, because they're changing almost all of the support items. So let's go ahead and talk about what's up with this. Okay, so the Zeke's Herald change is interesting. I did watch Red Mercy show how this is in action, and it looks like the storm follows you around. Basically, what it does is it has some pretty dinky stats. I haven't actually added up. Let me see how efficient this is. Okay, so armor's worth 20 gold each. It's 1,100. So 1,100. Okay, so 1640, and then I think 10% CDR is about 335 gold worth. Okay, so 1975. And then mana is worth, you know, something. I don't know. Mana's not worth that much, but I mean, maybe like a couple of gold apiece, maybe 1 gold apiece, something like that. So it's roughly cost efficient, becoming close to cost efficient without the passive. So that's pretty good. It's just a weird assortment of things. I mean, I guess this, like, it's designed for tanks. I suppose it doesn't have any plus healing or shielding. It's kind of as a catch-all. But this is where it gets interesting. So the new passive is casting your ultimate near your ally summons a local frost storm for 10 seconds. Now, I did watch the video. This sticks to you. So as you move around, I was afraid it was going to be, like, just summons on the ground near you. It stays on you as a champion for 10 seconds. You can walk around with it. As the storm rages, nearby enemies are slowed by 30%, and your allies' attacks burn their targets for 60% over this. Okay, so this is important. Like, the grammar here is tough. Okay? It is a single ally. They should word it like something like the attacks of your ally or something, because this makes it sound like it's plural. But I believe it's just your partner. Their attacks do an extra 60% bonus magic damage. Now I assume that's 60% of their total like attack damage. Now, if it's a modified damage, if it's like a crit, I don't know if it burns for that extra. Like a Draven Q crit for 1,000 or something, would it do an extra 600? I don't know. It says just their attacks burn the target for 60% extra over 2 seconds. But that seems really strong. I mean, it's basically 60% extra damage over time, but... And they don't have to be in the storm to do this. This is completely independent. So if you start your ult... and then you go, like, jump somewhere else on the map, then they will still have this, I believe, as long as they're still within range of the binding. And I'm not sure what the range is on it. I believe the link range is probably about 700 or so. It might be a bit further than that. It's been a while since I've used that item, the Zeke's, assuming they haven't changed the range on it. But attacking a burning enemy... Okay, so this is you. So if you attack a burning enemy, it ignites your Frost Storm for 3 seconds, searing all enemies inside for 50 magic damage per second. So you give them flaming attacks. If they attack somebody, and then you attack the person, then your little circle does 50 magic damage per second. So you could, in theory, if you attack someone immediately, you could get up to about 500 magic damage. But it's more likely, you know, in a really rosy scenario, you know, maybe 250 damage. So not a lot, but it is area of effect also. So I think the biggest component of this is the extra 60% on a single target, which could be good. Now, another question that I have about this, it says casting your ultimate. So what I was thinking about was with Tahm Kench, where you can cast his ultimate, but then it can get canceled. Now, I'm not sure how it's going to be coded, if it's going to be coded around something like that. But in theory, you could walk up with Tahm Kench in a fight and just like press R, trigger this, and then cancel it and keep walking. If you cancel his R early, it's only on a 10-second cooldown. So you could have this every 45 seconds. Like obvious examples where this would be good would be something with a short cooldown, maybe like a Leona, or I think it's like an engaged tank type of thing. Nautilus, although his ultimate has a longer cooldown. Obviously Karma. These stats aren't really that good for Karma, but the ultimate would be good. But yeah, I think on Kench, Kench is the best one that I can think of right now, where you could use his ultimate to trigger this, and then cancel it if it's off cooldown. So, you know, that would be interesting. So I don't know. I don't know how this is going to pan out. I'm not sure how powerful it could be. I feel like it could be good. I feel like it could be good on some champions, but it's very niche. Okay, so I don't know. Like, jury's out on this. I feel like good. On, like, a Tahm Kench or something, maybe as, like, a... I don't know which order you'd get this in. Like, a second item or something? You'd want Knight's Vow, I think, on tanks for sure. I don't know. It's weird, but it does offer quite a lot of extra damage. So I'm not sure. Jury's out. I think it's good. I'm just not sure how good on certain champions. And Tahm Kench jumps out at me right now if you can cancel his ult to trigger it as someone who that could be really good on. Okay, so this is the big one, I think. This is massive. This is going to get Sona, like, I already think, and we'll talk about why, I already think Sona is just about must pick, must ban. She's really, really strong, especially in solo queue. But this is going to just throw her way over the top. So I crunched some numbers here on this. And this is all super good, by the way, too. Like, I really applaud Riot. Like, they've made some awesome decisions. Like, they've made supporting so much cooler this season. I've always loved supporting, but they have these, like, super high impact, like, very unique active items that are cool. Like, you've got Redemption, you've got Locket, Knight's Vow has some cool interactions. So they're doing the best they can to make you feel like, to make people feel like they have big plays with their items. It's like big ticket activatables that are meaningful. So I think that's really good. And, you know, just, I like the way they're taking a lot of stuff. I like the loot system. it's a fun way that people can get some extra stuff if they want, and you know, they can generate a lot more money. Riot can if people want to go for that. So I like the looting system. I like the mastery system. Like, they're doing a lot more stuff that makes the game like fun and interesting for more casual players, right? Like people that aren't trying to go to, you know, Diamond Master, Challenger type of stuff, who just want to do something else other than ranked. They've had a lot of extra game modes that I think are really cool too. And now they're doing these like events where you can participate, and they have these quests and stuff like that. I think they're doing a really awesome job at making the game like fun and interesting and fresh. And even the balancing side, like every patch just about feels like they're making some major changes. And not everything is always a winner, right? Like some things just kind of strike out for a little bit, but for the most part, I think they are switching up the meta quite a lot. Like, I feel like there's a very wide variety of champions that are good. Like, there are some that are very, very powerful and some that are overpowered, but I think there's quite a wide swath. I think the meta might be more open than it ever has been before in terms of what's viable. I mean, what's good. And so I really applaud them. I think this is the best season so far for creativity and just R&D for Riot. So hats off to them. I think it's a great time. Okay, so let's get to Athene's here. So this is insane, especially on Sona. Like, I seriously think this is going to get Sona like permanently banned, like picked or banned. Like, people were already starting to play her more and figure out that she's good even before this change. This change is absurd. So let's go ahead and look at it really quickly. Okay, ability power lowered from 40 to 30. That sounds bad. It's okay, trust me. I'll tell you in a second why. It balances out with this new passive. Base mana regen up to 100%. Good. Mana regen, the type of champions that want this, they're going to love mana regen. Cooldown lowered from 20 to 10. This is fine, honestly, because one reason why I don't get Athene's a lot of times on Sona or like Nami or other champions that could use it very well is it just feels like the CDR is a wasted stat because you almost always go over the cap with 20, because every single support item has CDR. So just about every single enchanter support item has CDR. So, you know, you don't need 20%. So if they're putting this power elsewhere, I'm fine with that. 10% is fine. Blood rate earns at 25% instead of 20%. This is very important. This means that you're going to get 25% more bonus heal. So that's really good. When you go from 5 to 25, that's 25% increase in the rate at which you're healing. So that's really nice. And now it's renamed to Dissonance as the passive. So it doesn't give 25 health regen for mana regen. Thank God. Like, it is such a worthless stat on like everybody except for Soraka. Health regen is just really not important outside of lane for the vast majority of champions. You know, lifesteal, and they don't have spell vamp in the game anymore, but you know, things like lifesteal are just so much more impactful than just health regen, because most fights just aren't going to last long enough for health regen to matter. So health regen is just garbage on a big ticket item. Like, it's okay early game, but it's just trash on bigger ticket items later. So I really like that change. And now it gives you 5 ability power for every 25% base mana regen. Wow, that's really, really good. So how good is that, you ask? Well, let's take a look. So let's say that you just have kind of a standard build here. Let's say you have Athene's Unholy Grail, Eye of the Watchers, Ardent, Censer, Redemption. Okay, this is kind of end game. But you could even run it with lower numbers and it'd still be crazy. So that gives 100% mana regen off of Athene's, 50 off of Watcher, 50 off of Ardent, and 150 off the new Redemption. That's 350% mana regen. So that converts to 70 bonus AP. 70. So that's going to be 100 total AP on this item. That's insane. That 70 extra AP is like a 1,500 gold value. So that is crazy. So a Sona with the level 5 Q, so max out Q with 100 AP is going to do 420 damage. Assuming you hit with both components. Your power chord auto is going to do 346 damage. That's a total of 766 damage. So that means that this passive off of Athene's is going to heal for 192 bonus healing on your W. Just for reference, Sona's W typically only heals for 115 on the first target, which is it doesn't heal you. If you look closely at Athene's, like, it's kind of weird how it's worded down here. There we go. Another ally, healing or shielding another ally equal to the 100%. So the heal that goes to the other person on the W is what's going to get this. And so if you go through that rotation that I just talked about, you're going to heal your ally for, you know, a total of over 300. And her W naturally only heals for 115. But let me just pull up Sona here. So we're going to have to talk about this more, Sona, in a little bit also. But, you know, if you look at her W here, it looks like a kind of dinky heal, right? It's only got 115. So this thing is healing for, like, you know, an insane amount. It's almost a double heal. Not quite. But it's almost like you're getting a triple heal off of that. And don't forget that this also scales with your plus healing and shielding. So if you know, with these items right here, you would have plus 20% plus wind speakers. That'd be 30% extra healing and shielding. So, you know, that's going to do an extra 60. So it's going to heal for like 250 on your W. And that's, your Q is on like a 4-second cooldown or a 3-second cooldown or something once you get her ultimate. Like, the ultimate lowers the cooldown by 40%. And I think that you can still get, like, if you get 40% CDR with that, it's almost 80%. So, you know, this Q's going to be up every, like, second or something. Every second or two. And you're just going to be spamming those abilities and just stacking that up. And then every time you press W, then it's going to heal for that amount. Like, it's just disgusting. You're going to get so much extra healing off of that. It's just ridiculous. It's also going to be pretty good on Karma, Lulu, Soraka, probably Nami. Someone on stream pointed out that it would be good on Nami. Now, the thing about Nami that people don't know is that AP is actually extremely good on her. Because each bounce normally decays by... I talk about this in my Nami guide, but each bounce decays by 85%. Right? But every 100 AP that you have is 7.5%. So if you get to 200 AP, then all of a sudden there is no decay. So it's full damage on everybody, in addition to, you know, doing normal magic damage. So if you get this, you know, Athene's Unholy Grail stacked up to 100, you have, you know, 20 from runes. That's 120. Then you have Eye of the Watchers. That is like 155, I believe. Then you have Ardent Censer. It takes you to 215. So you're going to have over 200 AP with this build. And so if you have 200 AP here, this is going to do 230 times 2 per bounce. That's 460. And then you're getting 50%. So 50% per bounce. That'd be, if you had 200, that'd be 100 per. So that'd be 330. With no decay, hitting twice. That's 660 damage off of a Nami W if you have 200 AP. Oh, and the heal. You know, just tack on a real quick, what's that, 30% AP, 60s. That's a 245 heal in there. But the 660 AP, you do 660. Divided by... That's not right. 25%. Okay, there we go. So you'd get a heal for 165 every time you cast your W. So that, you know, it's almost a... That's not quite a double heal again, but it's close. So the next time that you cast your heal, it would heal for that much. Now, if you heal an ally using that, then you would get a double heal off of this. And then you'd have like a 400 or 500 heal with all the plus healing and all the AP. It's going to be pretty good on her too. Pretty good on her too. I think that Sona, just because Sona's cooldowns are so low, like this, you would still have to wait. You know, even if you have 45% CDR. You know, you're still going to have to wait like 6 seconds. The thing about Sona's is you can just do that like every like 2 seconds or something. But it'll still be pretty good on Nami. AP actually is pretty good on her because of this W interaction. So yeah, anyways, I think that item is going to be a meta-defining item that's ridiculous. I think it's going to, like, any enchanter that can do some damage, like, you know, the ones that I pointed out, particularly I think Karma, Lulu, obviously Sona, Karma, Lulu, and Nami I think will be the best. Soraka is still pretty good with it. She doesn't do quite as much damage, but she's still pretty good. That item is just bonkers. Like, you might actually see it on mid laners, potentially. They don't get that much, like, mana regen items, though. So maybe you wouldn't see it on mid laners, but either way, it's going to be really good. I mean, it's possible, like, I was trying to think, if you did, like, an AP champion, but there's just not a lot of good, like, mana regen items on AP champions. I mean, this turns champions like Sona and Nami into AP champions, because you have Ardent, Censer, Eye of the Watchers, and now this Athene's Unholy Grail. I mean, you get 200 or 300 AP off of that. So, I think those champions are going to be, like, just through the roof powerful. Okay, but it's not just the utility. They're actually doing something for the tanks, okay? So people who love tanks out there, they actually are making some pretty big changes. This is something I've been asking for them to do for, like, half a year, and thank God they finally did it. Which is give Knight's Vow CDR. Hallelujah. Here we go. Okay? So here's our CDR that I've been begging for. And the reason is tanks just don't have good CDR items. It sucks. They finally gave Eye of the Equinox CDR, I guess, maybe 3 or 4 patches ago. And that was a good start. But they needed to do this item, because this item is so good, but it doesn't have CDR. And finally, they took away the base health regen, because as I said, this stat is garbage. No one cares about this stat. It's garbage. So finally, they took this out, they gave you 10% CDR, and they lowered the cost to boot. So this is really, really good. Now it's 2200, so it's competitive with the other support items. And it's just awesome. This is a totally baller item. And, you know, you might even see this on a lot of junglers now. Like junglers, top laners. Like, I've already seen some people getting this item. Really, really good item. Very cost efficient now. That CDR is just a godsend. That's so good. So that's awesome. They are lowering the cost across the board on anything that involves Glacial Shroud. So they're dropping the armor on Glacial Shroud and lowering the cost, but the completed item is now giving just as much armor. So everything is basically reduced by 100 gold. So that's Frozen Fist and Frozen Heart, which is good. The problem with these is just that mana. Like, tanks just don't need that much mana typically. So like I said, I mean, I think the real thing that would put tanks, like, over the top and make them very good is if they just knock the mana off of this and just reduce the cost. Or at least reduce the mana, you know, like took it down to 200 mana or something like that, and just reduce the cost by another 300 gold. Something. Because that mana is just a dead stat a lot of the times on champions that want Frozen Heart and Iceborne Gauntlet. Like, yeah, there are some corner cases like a Moo, and, you know, people can point out cases, but I just feel like if they knocked off the mana, these things would be awesome. Like, how sweet would this item be if it was like 2200 gold and it just read plus 65 armor, 20% cooldown reduction, and gives you the Sheen procs and didn't have mana on it? I think that would be fantastic. But anyways, we'll be grateful for what we got. This is good. They changed coin and Oasis. It doesn't matter that much. They changed banner around a little bit to only be 2200. It's still pretty bad, I think. I don't know. They gave it Point Runner, which is interesting. So that lets you run around towers a little bit better. They did take off the flat mana off of this, so that's good. Is flat mana bad? So I kind of do like Point Runner instead of flat mana. The base mana regen is kind of whatever, but this is decent. I could see this being good on like someone like Tahm Kench, maybe, like people who need to run around faster around towers. So this is an improvement. This is more viable. This is more viable for sure. I think it's cheap. It's got some good stats. Got the cooldown reduction, and it gives you that speed around towers. So it's all right. It's all right. It might maybe like a 3rd or 4th item if you need some extra push. So yeah, Knight's Vow is huge. Locket of the Iron Solari. I love this. I love this change, because this means that, like, utility champions can't get this item. So now you get something for being a tank, right? Like you get this nice, cool item, and it's like basically just for tanks, and it scales very well if you get, you know, a lot of bonus stuff. So I did some math here. This is something I've been saying for a long time too, is that they need to make Locket and Redemption mutually exclusive. So you cannot get both of them. I thought they should just literally just put it in the text. You can't have both of them, you know, kind of like you do with the gold items. But they've thought of a workaround that's pretty creative and interesting. They want it to scale with the things that certain classes of champions would naturally want to scale with. So for instance, with Locket here, they make it scale with bonus health, because this is something that enchanters aren't going to get a lot of. You're not going to be stacking health, you know, if you're Nami or if you're Janna, and so it's going to have no scaling, and it's going to be a bad item. And they do something similar with Redemption, which we'll show here in a second. But this is great. So they are effectively making it mutually exclusive, so you would not want both of these items on the same person. This is going to open up itemization so much. It's going to open up viable supports so much. I still think enchanters are probably going to be oppressive with that new Unholy Grail, if it comes as it's currently, you know, iterated. Remember, it's PBR. It could, or PBR, PBE. But as it stands, enchanters will still be really strong, but tanks will definitely be. Right now, they're basically not viable in most situations, but this will help make them a lot better. So HP scaling is great. So here's just an example of what this might look like. So if you go Knight's Vow, Face of the Mountain, Ruby Sightstone, which would be kind of a standard build, plus the 120 health from your Runes and Masteries if you go the 50 health on the right tree, and then you go 72 health from your yellow runes, so you get to about 120. So that's a total of 1470 HP. And so you're going to get plus 220 shield on your Lockets. That's 620 shield. And remember that Face of the Mountain also scales off of your health. I still have that called up here. Let me see here. A permanent shield. 10% of your maximum health. Okay, yes. So it does scale off of your health too. So if you have like, you know, 3,000 health or something, building on those items that I just mentioned, then it's going to be a, you know, 300 shield. So if you combine these together, you know, a 300 and some change, you're going to get 1,000 shield on somebody. That's pretty good protection. Now that 620 shield is going to be on everybody. It's all around you. Now you're not going to get any more plus healing, shielding on tanks probably, but that's really nice. So, you know, that could actually save someone from like a Mega Fed Syndra or Veigar. You could actually be able to save them if you're fast enough. So yeah, I think that's really nice, and I'm glad they're making that mutually exclusive for tanks. They're giving them a nice sort of protection, especially high shield protection against assassins, because that's something that tanks lack. They don't have the shield, they don't have a lot of the prevention. Like, they have initiation, they have some peeling, but it's hard when, you know, that LeBlanc just jumps on your face and bursts somebody, or the Cassidon or whatever. So I think that's a good move. Okay, so Redemption, they're doing something similar with. This is a bad change for Nomad's Medallion. It's giving it flat mana instead of CDR. Awful. Please don't ship this. This is trash. I mean, nobody buys this. So, I mean, if they do this, I might even get, like, Spell Thieves on Janna and just find some way to make it work. Because Coin is already the worst one by far of the gold items. The only person that I get it on is Janna, because she doesn't have a good way to proc Spell Thieves, other than just, like, 450 range auto attacks. But anyways, I think that, I think it's a terrible idea. Ohmwrecker is still just a bad item. Like, it's supposed to help with dives, but if you just know how to juggle aggro at all, you don't need this item. It's just too expensive. This has a bunch of garbage stats. It's got 150% base health regen. That's just awful. Because remember, you're paying for that. Like, that's gold value there. Like, 150 base health regen. I don't know what it's worth. It's probably worth like 500 gold or something. I mean, that could be so much more. That could be 20 more armor. It could be 30 more armor. Like, it's just garbage. So yeah, it's sad. I mean, this has been like probably arguably the worst item in the game for a long time. It's an item that nobody ever gets. I wish they would rework that just a little bit more. Raptor's Cloak, they changed it around. Less armor, bigger cost. Or less armor, less cost. That's what I meant to say. Okay, redemptions. This is another really interesting one that people will be kind of mulling over. So it has less health. I don't think this is going to matter that much. It might throw off the Soraka Warmog's build, but that's so rare anyways. I don't think it will, though. If it does, you could just adjust your runes and be fine. Health regen lowered. Okay, good. Trash stat anyways. Mana regen increased. Okay, good. Not only because you want mana regen on Enchantress, but because it scales with Athene's now, so that's really good. The heal amount changed. Okay, so this one is a little difficult to think about conceptually, so I did some math for you here. As I always do, to try to break it down and make it simple for you. Okay, so less health is fair, more mana regen is good. Okay, so the base healing is slightly lower early, but it has really high scaling, especially later in the game. So this item is going to be really, really good on things like Soraka and maybe Janna. Like things that aren't going to be using Unholy Grail. It's going to be really good. So I think you're going to want to choose either Mikhail's or Unholy Grail. And this really makes Unholy Grail, or this really makes Mikhail's rather, look like an appealing option because you get a lot of extra healing off of this. Now it's burst healing, it's over many targets. I still think that Athene's is going to be better. You don't want to get Athene's and Mikhail because they cancel each other out. It says you can't have Discord and Harmony on the items or whatever. So it's part of their like Harmony and Chaos theme that they're doing in the next patch, which is cool. I like that. Yeah, if we go up and look at this, disables Harmony on your other items, so you don't want to get it this with Mikhail's. But anyways, so let's just look at how this pans out. So now you do have an option, like you can still play Janna, who probably can't use Unholy Grail that well. And a couple of, like, Soraka, who's not going to be great with Unholy Grail. It'll be okay. You do have the option of just going for the standard, you know, Ardent Censer into Mikhail's into Redemption. And it could still be a good build. So how does this work? Okay, so the old scaling, level 10, let's say that you have Redemption plus just your Windspeaker Mastery. The old one would give you 348 healing per target. And the new one's going to give you 336 per target. Because what this does is it has lower base. So your base healing is only 210 per target, whereas it used to be 290. So this is going to be garbage on tanks. I would not get this on anyone that's not going to get plus healing and shielding. But your plus healing and shielding is tripled on the Redemption proc. Tripled. That's huge. Okay? So instead of having 1.2 from Redemption plus your standard 1.2 from Redemption plus Windspeakers, you would have 1.6. So you'd have 60% healing and shielding, and that would go to 336. Okay, so at level 12, if let's say that you throw Ardent Censer on there, so now you have Redemption, Ardent Censer, and Windspeaker for a total of 30% plus healing and shielding. That would give you 475 per target instead of 442. All right, so you're getting a little bit more. You're getting, you know, about 10% more or so healing out of it. Now let's say that you get to level 15 or 14 rather. It's in game. You have Ardent Censer, Mikhail's, Redemption, Windspeaker. Now you're going to get 725 healing per target hit instead of 585. So that's a really big deal. You know, that's like 20% more, 25% more. It's a lot more. That's when you're kind of maxing out at plus 50% healing and shielding. So I think this means you don't want to rush it early. I think you would want to go Ardent Censer first. And then if you want to do that, you would go Ardent Censer and then Redemption. And that would make it better by that point at level 12 or so. Another build, especially on someone like Sona, Nami, all of those, you know, you can just go Ardent Censer into Unholy Grail and then Redemption after that. I think you could even wait that long if Unholy Grail is as strong as I think it's going to be. So there's a lot of options there. So this is still really good, and it does give you, if you want to go Mikhail's, this does give you a nice payoff. So you don't have to go Unholy Grail. Your Enchanter supports are not all of a sudden just absolute trash if they can't proc Unholy Grail that well, which is a nice way to balance it. So you have options. You can go for larger redemption hits with more plus healing, or you can go Unholy Grail, which will give you more AP damage and potentially proc more healing. So Unholy Grail's better, I think, but not so much so that it's going to push other things out of the meta. Okay. And then there's a few other changes. You know, I'll go over all of this, obviously, in the patch when it gets released. I just want to give you a preview of kind of where I think things are going. So these are interesting. That's just bad. That's a bad change. It gives you that flat mana. Coin line is just absolute trash. This glory is okay, I guess. I don't know. ZZ Rot's still bad. But yeah, okay. So let's go ahead and move on to current stuff. Oh gosh, that was 36 minutes. Sorry, but I think that it is interesting stuff, right? Like I think that's things that people want to know about. That's interesting. So, sorry, that's a preview there. I'll have it in the description though. So if people wanted to skip that, they could. But I think most people would want to hear about it. Okay, so what's going on this patch in terms of meta predictions? Be sure to watch the patch notes video that I talked about earlier if you want to see kind of the play-by-play, what happens in the patch. Right here, I'm just going to be talking about bigger picture stuff a little bit more for 7.11, what I think is really strong. Okay, so the plus healing stat still scales absurdly well. This is the defining stat of this meta right now. If it doesn't scale with plus healing, you really don't want to play it most of the time, frankly. Eye of the Watchers has helped out so much. Like I had thought initially, you know, and whenever they changed that in 7.9 or 7.8, I don't remember. I think it was 7.8. I was like, you know, Eye of the Watchers, it loses the mana regen. That could be bad. But the movement speed on Eye of the Watchers dramatically helps so many enchanters that had been so dangerous before. Let me pull it up here. This is the best forward item by far, and it has been since the beginning of the season for different reasons. But it just has such great stats on it. Like the base mana regen is nice, but it's not too much over the top. Just everything here is just good. Like you just want these stats. They're all good. Like the Eye of the Equinox is good, but it's got that pesky health regen on it, 200%, which is like, you don't need it. I mean, how much is that valued at? 600 gold. That's not like definitely wasted 600 gold, but it's not good. Wow, cooldown reduction's that cheap? Jeez. I thought it was 335 value, but anyways, that's just bad. Like, how much health could you get for that? Health is 2.66 per health, so you know, you could have an extra 225 health. Like, I'd much rather this say gives you 725 health with no base mana regen. But whatever. So, I mean, it's Eye of the Watchers is still okay. I mean, they at least gave it 10% CDR. It is more expensive. It's 2,300. Whereas this is 2,200. And it doesn't seem like a lot, but it is noticeable. That extra 100 gold is a big deal when you're trying to complete this as a support early on. But everything here is good. 35 ability power is awesome. So yeah, so it's very, like, you can get it early. You're still going to do damage. You're still going to be powerful. You're still going to have scaling. You're going to have some mana regen. It's got some health for you. It's got 4 wards. Helps you do more damage to towers. Helps you do more damage to players when you're proccing the tribute. It's just a really, really good item that you can definitely rush early on and see some major impact. And then also, this is the big one. Spells and basic attacks against champions or buildings give you 50% bonus movement speed for 1 second. Okay. But you can't proc it more than once every 1.25 seconds. Okay. But still, like, and this stacks. So if you hit people with a multi-target thing, is what this looks like. So for example, if you do like a Sona Q, you hit 2 different targets. Well, I don't know. Anyways, it gives you a lot of movement speed. That's the key here. So that 50% bonus movement speed for 1 second lets you get out of really dangerous situations. So champions like Sona, who had a hard time getting away from threats, now you can just press Q, 50% movement speed, press your E for a speed boost, and just fly out of there. You know, same is true with Nami, same is true with Karma. You know, just all these champions just got a lot safer with that Queen's Tribute. It's very, very powerful. It even helped out Zyra and Fiddlesticks quite a lot. Fiddlesticks just is tremendously more powerful when you get that movement speed. So, you know, if you have your passive with the movement speed, and then as soon as you ult in, you hit a bunch of people with your ultimate, gives you the movement speed. This really allows you to reposition well. So, quite a powerful item. So yeah, I think that that's what really has helped Sona, Nami, and Soraka become a lot more meta, is because, or just become a lot more powerful. I kind of hate that word meta because it has really ambiguous meanings. It can mean popular and it can mean powerful, and those aren't necessarily the same thing. And so I really don't like that word, because they aren't the same. Like, just because something's popular doesn't mean that it's powerful, and just because it's powerful doesn't mean that it's popular. Raven, for example, Twitch. Like, these champions aren't picked very much. Like, they are picked some, but not as much as they should be. So are they meta because they're really strong? Well, they're not popular, but they are strong. Or there are things like Lucian, Ezreal from patches past. Very popular, very powerful? I think not. You know, I think that Draven and Twitch have been the most powerful for several patches now. People just don't play them. Okay. But anyways, that's kind of the turning point there. Like, the changes to Ardent, Censer, the Eye of the Watchers, and some assassins have fallen out of the meta, although there are still quite a few that are popular. But I think that really this was the big one, the Eye of the Watchers change. So yeah, and a lot of it is itemization. Like, enchanters have the most powerful suite of items of any support by far. They can use Redemption well, they can use Mikhail's, and especially Ardent Censer and Locket. Whereas if you play something like, you know, like Nautilus or whatever, you can't really use Mikhail's that well. You can't really use Ardent Censer that well. Like, you will get Redemption and Locket, but you still can't get 2 of the most powerful items, like, out there. And there's just not an equivalent for tanks right now. Like, Knight's Vow is good, but it's not as good as Ardent Censer. Or Mikhail's in a lot of situations. And they just don't have a stat that scales as well as the plus healing stat. Like, all they can do is get more tanky. But at some point, enemies can just run past them and, you know, kill your AD carry. So they're trying to remedy this in the next patch. But, you know, right now in 7.11, tanks are just in a pretty bad place because they just don't have great itemization. Okay, so this is where I linked what I talked about earlier. Apto talking about supports, and he's talking about why enchanter supports are the best right now and why they're so ridiculously strong. So it's about a 7-minute video. If you want to check it out, you can. But his TLDR is basically what I've just been explaining. The plus healing stat scales so well, and it's so much better than anything tanks have to offer. It's just not even worth considering tanks most of the time. Even if your team doesn't have tanks. Like, there are so many, let me see if I can pull up my... Now, OP.GG was lagging a little bit earlier, so we'll see how it does here. But people always freak out sometimes. They're like, oh my god, you don't have a tank on your team. Like, on the stream sometimes, they're like, you need a tank. Or people will be like, pick a tank, you know, or whatever. But there are so many games where you don't have a tank and you still win. Like, that's how bad tanks are right now. You just don't need them. As long as you have some way to start a fight, or even if you can just catch up to people that are just caught out in a stupid fight, or if you can just flank people in the woods, get good magic damage, or just siege people down and force them to come to you. Like, there are so many ways that you can be successful in League of Legends without having a traditional, like, frontline tank that starts fights, right? So if we look at this game right here, where I had to play Ivern, we didn't have a tank. Enemy team had a tank. They had Gragas. That's about it. We didn't have a tank. We still won. This game, pretty much no tank. Like, Trundle was kind of tanky, sort of, kind of. They had, like, a tank. It didn't really matter. And look at this game. Like, Amumu was sort of kind of a tank, but not really. They had 3 tanks. They had Braum, Warwick, and Galio. Those are all pretty good tanks. It didn't matter. This game, we sort of kind of had a tank with Skarner. Like, this is another Skarner game that was kind of weird. So, you don't really need tanks. All you need is a way to start a fight and kill people. Like, that's it. So, yeah, I think just tanks are just in a bad spot. If you like tanks, just wait till the next patch. I think they will be viable. I think the enchanters are still going to be really good, but tanks will be more viable. One class that's kind of left out here probably is AP supports. Are going to be in a pretty rough spot, I think, with all these buffs to every other, you know, support line thing. Unless, like, the AP supports are going to be, like, things that also have a heal. Like, Nami's going to be your AP support. Sona's going to be your AP support. Like, your traditional, like, your Zyra, your Fiddlesticks, your Brand, that kind of stuff. I think that's going to be pretty rough next patch. I think it's going to be pretty rough. But yeah, Ardent Censer. This item is crazy. This is what I've been talking about. This is what Apto is pounding the table about. He's like, this item is absurd. Over and over again. And he got me thinking about it. And I had always known that Ardent Censer was good. But, you know, just listening to the #1 Korean guy explaining it and, you know, talking about it, I was like, And I went back and I crunched the numbers again. And I've got them here for you with Janna. I'll show you here in just a second. But I just want to refresh you about this item really quickly, okay? So this is another item where it's like every single thing on it is good. There's not a wasted stat on this item. And it's important to emphasize that because a lot of items have wasted stats. Like you just saw I have the Equinox. You don't need the plus healing or the health regen or whatever on it. You don't need plus mana, like plus flat mana on a lot of items. That's trash. Like there are just some stats on some items that just aren't good, right? This is not one of them. Every single thing on this item is really powerful. It is exactly what you want. And it's only 2,300 gold. Like, it's almost worth it. And I would say a lot of this stuff is undervalued. So they're undervaluing cooldown reduction. When I did my cooldown reduction calculations, I thought it was worth 35 gold each based on Ionian boots. But I guess Ionian boots have that extra component to them, but whatever. Cooldown reduction is extremely good and an undervalued stat. Mana regen is very good, and I honestly think that Fairy Charms are borderline overpowered right now. I know that sounds ridiculous, but it's 125 gold, and on someone like a Sona or a Janna, it gives you 4 extra mana per 5. 4 extra mana per 5. An entire rune or like an entire rune section of yellow mana per 5 runes only gives you 3.4 mana per 5. So literally all of the runes, 125 gold worth of runes for just a Fairy Charm. Like, that's crazy, right? Like, if we look at like, just take like armor quintessences, which are considered to be like probably the best runes right now, at least for support type of people. It's 4.3 armor per, so 4.3 times 3 equals basically 13. So if you do 13 armor times 20 gold per armor, that's valued at 260. So that's 260 gold worth on those quintessences. I guess if you do armor yellows, it would be 9 armor yellows, so that'd be 180. Whereas, yeah, the mana regen would only be worth like 100 or 105. So yeah, it's partly that the mana regen runes are bad, but it's also just that Fairy Charms are so good. Like, they're so good. They're so cheap, and they just let you spam stuff over and over and over again. Like, if you go up against a very viable build on someone like a Sona is on your first back, you just get like Ruby Crystal 3 Fairy Charms or something, and whenever you come back, like, what's the enemy laner supposed to do about that? You can just spam damage, you can spam shields, you can just spam all this stuff. Fairy Charms are so good, and they build into everything. They build into Redemption, they build into Ardent Censer, they build into Mikhail's. You don't even have to build them anything. You can sell it back for like 88 gold if you just want to rent it. you know, over 40 gold for like 10 minutes or something. They're so powerful. So it's got the base mana regen, it's got the ability power, which is great, it's got the cooldown reduction, it's got the movement speed, which it's only valuing that at 316. I think that's probably worth more than that. It's got the plus healing and shielding, which isn't even calculated here. I think that was worth about 35 gold a piece. That's another 350. So it's basically cost efficient without even taking the passive into account. And this passive is insane. Like, even at just the base level, you know, people are going to be healing. By the time you buy this, it should probably be like level 9. 27% extra attack speed on everyone that's touched by this. And on hit heals for about 27 as well. That's just nutty. Like, that's so good. Especially on Sona, like, because if you didn't notice this, like, the aura on Sona, the W that can shield, like, in that circle around you, anyone that touches that gets it. So you can give this to everyone on your team, potentially, if they're balled up, or in most scenarios, at least 2 or 3 people you can give this to every, like, 3 seconds. So it's always up. This is just a permanent thing on your team, basically in a team fight with Sona. So that's what makes this thing so powerful. And even with Janna, you know, being able to give your AD carry this is so powerful. And, you know, I had thought, well, if you don't rush Redemption, you're sacrificing a lot of healing, and, you know, this only buffs a single target, whereas Redemption can hit multiples. Well, it gives you a lot of extra healing. A lot of extra healing because of the AP. So how the healing works is you take your shield, your standard shield plus your AP, and then you apply the plus healing. So the plus healing, like, stacks multiplicatively with AP. So for example, if we look at, do I have a Janna tab? I do have a Janna tab, I think. I'm starting to get too many tabs. We have a Janna tab here. So she has a 0.7 on her E, which is huge. And she has the highest base shield now in the game, I'm pretty sure, at 240, or it's pretty close. They've nerfed all the other shields, but they've let Janna have hers still, so 240. Where they nerfed the Lulu, they've nerfed Karmas, they nerfed Iverns. Good kitty. But yeah, look at this. So, just your normal E with Wind Speakers and Redemption gives you 288 shield. So if you go for the Redemption, your shield is going to be 288, which is nice. However, with Ardent Censer, you go to 240, and you get 60 times your 0.7. That takes you to 282. And you times your 1.2 for Wind Speakers plus Ardent Censer. It gives you a 339 shield. So if we look at... you know, that's an increase of about 15%. So you're getting 15% bigger shields off of Ardent Censer. And it's going to give out 6 extra AD also. Don't forget that the AD component actually scales with your AP as well. So instead of getting 48 bonus AD, you're giving them 6 extra AD. I think each point of AD is worth like 35 gold or something like that. I believe it's worth about 35. So you're giving your AD carry an extra 210 gold value off of Ardent Censer. Now, another thing to keep in mind is that this bonus attack damage only lasts as long as the shield lasts. So if the shield is bigger, that means the attack damage is going to last longer. So if they get in even just one more auto attack, that's big. You know, that's an extra 46 damage that they get in that could crit, that could do all kinds of other things. So keeping the shield up for longer, it's a bigger shield, it's going to give you more auto attacks with the bonus AD, and it's going to make the bonus AD larger. So all of these things compound and make it extremely good on Janna. So it is very, very powerful, especially in those single target situations where it's just, if you rush it really early and it's just you and your AD carry, just a little 2-on-2 fight or a 2-on-3 with the jungler there or something like that. Really, really strong. Like, Redemption is still gonna be better in like the dream scenarios where you hit all 5 of your allies with Redemption and stuff like that. It's still gonna be really powerful, especially later in the game. But I think as a first item, you should be rushing Ardent. It's because it's more reliable. Like, Redemption, there's so much room for error because of the 2.5-second delay on it. You know, your ally could just run out of it. You could mistime it, so that it like hits right as your ally's about to die, or you might try to be leading your ally and they dash in another direction. There's just so many ways you can miss Redemption, but you can't miss Ardent Censer. It just does what it does. You know, like there's no extra skill involved behind it. There's no way your ally can run out of it. So I think it's just much more reliable. And the 8% move speed helps you reposition. Like, it's really, really nice, especially on someone like a Sona, to help you reposition so that you're not getting caught out and killed as much. So I think that you should still get Redemption, but I just think that Ardent Censer is a more consistent buy on a lot of enchanters. So I would be rushing Ardent Censer on virtually everybody. And then get your Redemption second item. Okay. So that's why. That's sort of, I did some recalculations. I watched the Apto video and then I did the recalculations, and that's just what I've come to. I think it's a lot better, not just on, that's just with Janna, who's really popular, but obviously on Sona, with your W being able to put it on everybody. It's just overpowered. It really is. I don't throw that word around a lot, but that's just, it just is. Okay. AP supports. So I think AP supports are taking a huge hit from the Banshee nerf on this patch. So Fiddle is very good against assassins. So when you have things like LeBlanc, like Cassidon running around, Fiddlesticks is good. And as I explained earlier, the extra move speed from Eye of the Watchers is really powerful on Fiddlesticks. That's really good with his ult. You know, if you have his passive plus Eye of the Watchers plus Storm Raider Surge, you just like zip through everybody. Basically with his ult, and you can reposition perfectly until you have to use your Hourglass. It also helps Zyra play a little safer. But the Banshee nerf removes some of the safety, because you can't build Banshees anymore. And I talked about this in my patch notes analysis, but people were saying, like, LS is what I'm talking about. Like, some of these great minds in League of Legends are saying, oh, this is a buff, this is good, because it makes the item more slot efficient. You're going to have more magic resist at the end of the game. Well, yeah, if you have 6 items and just like infinite gold, that's great. But for supports in particular, and for a lot of mid laners, you're just not going to see that item. Like, 300 extra gold is a big deal. It doesn't matter if you get extra magic resist. You're not buying it for the magic resist. It's a nice bonus, but you're buying it for the AP plus the shield, so that you can't get hooked by people. You can't get Lux binded. You can't get all kinds of nonsense happening to you. It's for the shield. Like, that's why you buy it. Shield plus AP, good. But now it's just too much. You're just priced out of it at 3,000 gold instead of 2,700. So it's you're just never going to buy it anymore. Like, now on Fiddlesticks and people like that, you're probably just going to go, you know, Eye of the Watchers into Hourglass into Void Staff. On Zyra, you're just going to go Leandre's Void Staff as per usual. So I don't think anyone's going to get Banshees anymore. So, you know, I do think that there is a place for AP supports. I think that if you have an all AD team, you might need a Zyra, you might need a Fiddlesticks, although you can do AP Sona. I'll talk about that here in a second too. You don't always have to do AP Sona, but it is on the board. If your team needs some AP damage, you can go things like Lichbane, and what is that? The tier item, Archangels. You can go Lichbane Archangels if you want, or Seraph's Embrace. So I think the Banshee nerf helps champions like Blitzcrank, like Thresh, and, you know, from the mid lane, like Annie, like Fizz. I think that helps them out a lot, because they hate Banshee's Veils, right? Because these champions don't have a good way to pop it, so it hurts their initiation with hooks. Annie doesn't have a good way to pop it, because all of her spells are close range, and Fizz really wants to initiate with his ult from a distance. So if Fizz has to go in and manually pop a Banshee's Veil and then use his Shark, that's going to suck. Because now you want to cast your Shark to at least get to the tier 2 level for respectful burst damage. But yeah, so I think that, you know, it's going to hurt Fiddle and Zyra, and I think that they were already hurting. It's just a really hard time for AP supports right now. Honestly, it really is. Like, I've played against Zyra. You know, Zyra is supposed to be very good against Sona, and that's who I would usually pick against Sona. Well, I think at least 2 or 3 of these games would beat a Zyra. And right there we beat Zyra. And right there we beat Zyra. Well, I wasn't playing that. I was Ivern, but Sona beat Zyra. So I just think that even some of the matchups that have been favorable in the past, like picking Zyra into Sona, is just really not even as viable anymore. You just can't get enough damage to bust through all the shields. Okay. So yeah, AP support's in a really bad spot. I know everyone says that you gotta play AP supports to carry. You can't get out of bronze by playing Janna or Sona or, you know, whatever, Lulu. You gotta play Brand. You gotta play Zyra, you know. False. False. You need to be playing Enchanter supports if you want to run right now. I mean, you can do it with like Zyra and Brand and things like that, but I honestly think that the utility supports, the Enchanter supports are really good. If you're going to play like a tank type of support, it needs to be Blitz or Thresh, and you need to be really, really good at landing those hooks. Okay. I think Death's Dance is still going to dominate. I think people still haven't figured out how good this item is. I mean, this item is absolutely ludicrous. I've talked about it a lot. I'll pull it up again. Now, they just buffed this item recently, so maybe people haven't seen it sneak in yet. Maybe they haven't played it in the LCS yet. But it's really, really, really good. Every time I see this item, any champion that gets this item has a huge impact. Like, I am just a huge, huge advocate. If you want lifesteal on a champion, you need to get Death's Dance. No Bloodthirster, no Blade of the Ruined King, Death's Dance on virtually everybody. So it is 80 attack damage, first of all. That's massive. That's like the highest attack damage you're going to get on a sword. That's like Infinity Edge level attack damage. It's really, really good. And attack damage is important not only for your auto attacks, but because many abilities scale off of attack damage. So if you get some of these dinkier, you know, other items like Blade of the Ruined King, like that passive on Blade of the Ruined King doesn't scale with crit. It doesn't scale with other abilities. It's just a standalone, like, cute item that has very low scaling. But that 80 AD is a big deal. Does Bloodthirster even have 80 AD on it? I don't remember. Okay, there we go. It does. Okay, so they changed it. It used to not, but it does. However, it's 200 gold more if you compare it to Bloodthirster. 200 gold more for the Bloodthirster. It does have 20% lifesteal. It has no CDR. But it doesn't have this. This is so important. I can't stress to you how huge this is. This 30% stores all physical damage, and basically you take 30% as bleed over 3 seconds. And 15% of all physical damage dealt. This is not lifesteal. This is far better than lifesteal. This is everything. This is Zaya's feathers. This is like Lucian Qs. This is Lucian's ult. This is just everything. It does physical damage. This is a Riven ult. This is a Darius Q. This is a Renekton Q. It's everything. Heals for this. So this is really, really powerful healing. And this 30% is a big deal. Like, you might think, oh, well, that's not really, like, preventing any damage. But it is. Because this buys time for more shields. If you have, it allows you to lifesteal. And it allows your Enchanter support to heal you an extra time. This gives Sona time to get off one more heal plus shield. This gives Janna 3 more seconds to get her shield back. This gives Soraka time to land one more heal. So that is really important. I can't tell you how many times I've had an 80 carry or a Riven or just somebody on my team have Death's Dance and they're just like ticking down about to die, and I can intervene and save them with an Enchanter support. So it's a huge, huge defensive steroid to have this. At the very least, you're going to be able to trade and kill somebody. So if it's coming down to the wire and you would normally get killed and the other person's going to walk away with like 100 health, now you get those extra couple auto attacks in, you get a good trade. So I'm a huge advocate. I cannot tell you how much I love this item on anything that has AD, basically. Like, I'm the biggest cheerleader for this item. If you're playing anything that has AD, you need to buy this item, basically. Like, I feel about this item how everyone else felt about Blade of the Ruined King over the past 3 patches, but I think this is the real deal. This isn't garbage like YouTube Illuminati hype. This is like real stuff. So I think it's extremely strong, and its components are pretty nice too. I mean, the everyone loves Vamp Scepter, gives you healing in lane, that's good. But the Warhammer is really good too. So it gives you that 10% CDR, which is really nice. It means you're you know, the first time you use your ult, it's going to be 10% less cooldown on it. So I love that item. So I think that people are going to discover just how powerful this item is, and more people are going to start building it. I think it's insanely good on Riven, Fiora, just any number of fighters, just anybody, basically. And 80 carries too. Like, I think it's really obviously super good on Draven. I think Draven's the best case scenario for it. Because he has so much lifestealing. He wants a lifesteal item, first item, and Boy the Ruined King is trash on him. It doesn't have enough AD. So Draven is like the king of using this item right now, but I honestly think it'd be really good on Twitch too. I know Twitch likes Bork because he wants extra attack speed, because he has the poison stacking. So Bork is still viable on Twitch. But, you know, I legit think Death's Dance could be okay. Twitch might be the only one where I would say, like, Bork is alright, you know, to still get. But, you know, on Lucian, on Xayah, even Caitlyn, you know, when she gets a lifesteal item eventually, typically she'll just go Infinity Edge, Hurricane, something else. But I think Death's Dance could even be okay on her in some instances. I think it's good. I mean, I think even on Ezreal, I would even get that bad boy on Ezreal. I mean, now I don't think Ezreal's good right now, but if you're gonna play him, like, you might as well get this instead of Blade the Ruined King, because this is gonna heal you for your physical damage, just like Blade the Ruined King heals on your Qs. This is gonna heal you on your Qs as well. It's gonna give you even more protection. It's gonna give you the CDR, which Ezreal loves. Ezreal doesn't need attack speed, so the attack speed on Bork is worthless, because all he does is just throw Qs all day. So why not just have higher attack damage for your Qs, higher healing, and even more protection? I would even get it on Ezreal. But anyways, I think that's going to take off. So I think a lot of champions, you know, even on Draven, like Death's Dance, Static Shiv, Infinity Edge, QSS, I think it's going to be strong. I feel like this video is getting long. It's getting long, so we'll pick it up a little bit here. Okay, I just talked about AP Assassins getting helped by that. Okay, so my top 5 for each role, and then we'll get down to the tier list here. So I think that best top laners, Riven, Fiora, Galio, Swain, and Renekton. So they're all kind of different champions. Now, I left out, like, Darius and Pantheon. Those are booster, like, Smurf type of champions, where if you're really good and you know what you're doing, those champions aren't really hard to play. But if you know how to leverage their strengths, you can just, you know, those type of champions where you can go, like, 90% win rate, booster type of thing. But against people that, I don't know, they're both really dicey. If you don't get very far ahead early, then you're just going to be terrible later. If you want to play a booster type of champ, I think Darius is probably better. Darius with Ghost. I mean, Pantheon can be good. I just feel like he falls off so hard later game, especially to Enchanter supports. Like Lulu, Janna, they just all crush him. But, you know, it's okay. I think these are booster champions too. I think you can definitely boost with these, you know, Riven and Fiora. I would just feel more comfortable with that. Like, these just snowball out of control, and they're so strong late game. These two are just monsters if you're good with them. I think that Galio, if you want to play a tank, if your team needs a tank, I think Galio is still the best. Like, Triple Doran's Ring, Galio top, I think can be really good. I think Swain is actually super strong top if you need an AP champion. Once again, he's super, not super tanky, but he's pretty tanky. And Renekton is another one who's kind of like, can fight early, tanky later, can dive the back line. He's just got some pretty good team fight disruption to him. So he's not as good at splitting as Riven and Fiora are. Neither of these, like, last 3 are. But they're really good team fighters. So I think he could be good. Kassadin is probably the most overpowered champion on this patch. You need to pick ban this guy every single time. Like, he is just absolutely disgusting. If I've never shown you Kassadin before, let me just pull him up real quick for people that are like, what? Why is he so disgusting? I'm not gonna, like, go through everything, but this is all you need to know, okay? He's got a 0.7 ratio on 3 abilities. They're all on pretty low cooldowns, like 7 seconds or less. Well, this is 9, but once you get CDR, it's less. 70% ratio on 3 abilities. His Rift Walk at level 16 is a 2-second cooldown. Pre-CDR. So it's going to be a 1-second cooldown, basically. That's a 1-second flash for those of you keeping track at home. You know, even before he gets to that, when he gets CDR or whatever, you know, it's a 3-second cooldown on his flash at level 11. This is stupid. Like, and it does a pretty good chunk of damage. Like, it doesn't do a lot, but it does a pretty good chunk of damage. So yeah, this is... Oh, and by the way, he's extremely good against any other magic user. He gets 15% reduced damage. He can never get minion blocked. And he gets a shield that also scales with AP that blocks magic damage that he could spam every, you know, 7 seconds or so with CDR. So he's just absolutely disgusting. Like, you have to ban this champion. Like, his only shortcoming is that he doesn't have good wave clear. That's it. So yeah, he can get pushed in, but someone, like, you dang well better end the game early, because if it goes late, it's just over. Like, no other mid laner can match him. Hardly. Like, I mean, you can try to put cheesy stuff up against him. Like, you can put a Talon or a Pantheon up against a mid lane, and, you know, that might do all right, but it's really forcing you to pick very specific things to try to counter him. And those champions, compositionally, can have some serious problems in different ways. So he doesn't have a lot of good, clean answers to him without having to get creative and get weird stuff that's just not going to be good in a lot of team comps. So he's a huge problem. If you want to win a lot of games and you play mid lane, or your friend does, just play this champion if he's not banned, and you'll win. Like, his laning phase is not even as bad as people think it is. Like, he can still trade. He can just throw a null sphere on you. It does damage and it blocks your damage if you're an AP middle. Like, I have won games where they had a Kassadin on the enemy team, but he's almost always relevant and scary. It's very rare for, like, Kassadin to just not be relevant in a game. So if you don't ban him and they play him, you only have yourself to blame. LeBlanc is another one who I would put as number 2. She's harder to play than Kassadin, but especially after, like, Ahri's nerf and some of the nerfs to some of these other champions. I think that she's really powerful now, especially with the Gunblade build that people have been doing. Like, it seems like very often when I see LeBlanc, she's just a huge terror. Her passive has a 0.8 ratio on it. That is gross. Shatter Orb. I mean, I'm not going to read all this stuff on her, but huge ratios. 100 ratio. 100 to 1. Her distortion basically doesn't do damage anymore. But her Shatter Orb, and in particular her chains, if she hits you with the chains, you're dead. Basically. And these mimicked, like, ratios are just like, what? 220 damage there. The Shatter like 400? Like, trust me, she has so much mobility, and she just completely just 100 to zeros people. And she's virtually never banned. So if you really want to master and, like, one trick a champion that you can use for just free low to climb your way up, I would play LeBlanc. She has pretty good wave clear too with her. It's okay with, like, her Shatter Orb. Shatter Orb distortion. I don't know how to play her that well. I just know that she's always very scary, and she just does an obscene amount of damage, and she's very, very mobile. So I think she's coming back in a style. Since they've nerfed other assassins, like they've nerfed Fizz, they've nerfed Ahri. They've nerfed a bunch of different items and champions, and I think that she's just really strong. So in a few games, I think Syndra is really good. Syndra obviously has massive burst damage. She's less safe than these other two, which is why she's lower. But she still has really good wave clear. And she probably has just as much spike damage as they do. And she's safer in some ways that she can play further back and she has longer ranges, but in other ways, she just doesn't have the mobility that they have. So Syndra is still really strong, especially, well, actually, she didn't really care about the Banshee because she could pop it so easily. So I do think that Syndra's pretty good. Katarina is another one that I've been seeing more and more lately that's a pretty scary champion. Once again, they've nerfed a lot of the other champions, so Kat is kind of coming back. I think that all three of these champions are very good into Kat, potentially, especially, like, Kassadin. But a lot of teams just aren't picking a lot of crowd control these days. Everyone's picking their fighters and their assassins, and there's just not much crowd control. I mean, if we look at this game, all we had a Sona ult. I had some crowd control with Ivern, but you know, a lot of these games just do not have much crowd control. And so that just really opens up space for Katarina to be very powerful. So I think she's up there. And then I think Ahri is still really good. There are several champions that could be here. Ahri's really good. Echo's really good. I think Fizz is okay, but every time I see a Fizz in my game, not every time, but very often, they just go down like 50 CS in the laning phase. It's just a god-awful laning phase. And and he has no wave clear. I wouldn't do Fizz. Like, as long as Kassadin, LeBlanc, and Syndra, and Katarina, all of those are up, if you could play any of those, I would play them before Fizz. I know that some pro players really, really like Fizz, but I don't know. Echo's harder to play than some of these other ones too. LeBlanc's actually pretty hard to play, but Echo can be really good if you're really good with him. So, I don't know. I mean, you could sub in Echo and Fizz somewhere on this list, but I think it's just all Assassins middle all the time. Jungle, I think that Zach is the most powerful right now. He's super strong. He probably needs some more nerfs. He's just like almost impossible to kill, and he just has a million different ways to crowd control people. So I think he's number one. I think that Ivern is still really, really good. This might be higher than a lot of people put in, but I personally just love Ivern, especially as a support player. If you play support out there and you need to play an off role, play Ivern. Now they're probably going to nerf him. It looks like they're going to nerf him in 7.12, and a pretty hard nerf. But you got to keep in mind the context here too, which is that they're going to buff Morellonomicon a lot. Which is probably why they're thinking about nerfing him. It's just the damage on his shield, though. Like, you're not picking him for his damage, although it's nice to... Like, he doesn't have to clear jungle minions or anything like that. Like, his damage doesn't matter, like, as much as it would on other champions that are junglers. But it still is relevant. I mean, losing 50 damage on your trigger seed is relevant. However, I think it still has 80 scaling. Let me see. Or did they lower the shield scaling on it? They've nerfed him like 3 or 4 times, and he still is up there near the top, I think. No, it still has 80 scaling. So, you know, he's going to lose 50 on the top of his off of his damage, or 70 is scaling on his damage. So he's still going to lose like 50 on this to go to 130. But you got to keep in mind, if he gets 100 extra AP off of, you know, getting, or not even 100, if he gets like 80 extra AP off of Morellonomicon, which is really probably pretty easy to do considering he goes Wind Speakers, Redemption, all that stuff, then, you know, it's not really going to be like an end game nerf as much as people think. Just keeping him from being like too out of control powerful with it, probably. But, anyways, we'll see what happens next patch. But right now, I love him. I would 100%, if you play support, play Ivern. People just aren't picking him. They aren't banning him. He's extremely powerful right now. He's still really good. I like Yi. He's just a pub stomp champion. He's extremely powerful in the jungle. Does a ton of damage. Once again, people aren't picking a lot of crowd control right now. And that means that he can just go wild. I mean, almost every single major booster that I've seen in my games plays Master Yi. Like, he's the kind of person where you just look at their op.gg and then all of a sudden, you know, they've won like 15 Master Yi games in a row. He's so good. Who is this clown? Alright, we'll just remove that. People trolling. Anyways. So, I think Kha'Zix could be making a comeback also. They have nerfed Graves, they've nerfed... Who did they just nerf? They've nerfed a bunch of other people out of the jungle, and they just nerfed Ninja Tabi boots, which were very good against Kha'Zix. So I explained in my patch notes like why Ninja Tabi were so important. But anyways, I think he could be making a pretty strong comeback. I think that like a Death's Dance Kha'Zix build, are pros actually doing that yet or not? Like, I think Cleaver Death's Dance... Oh, let me look at pro builds. People probably aren't doing that yet, but I do think that Death's Dance Cleaver could be good on Kha'Zix. Yeah, some people are starting to do it. Dominate's starting to do it, and he's dominating with it. So yeah, I think this is the build of the future here, and I think Kha'Zix is going to be really good with this build, where you just go Warrior, Cleaver, Death's Dance. I think it's pretty beast mode. I don't know, are other people doing it yet? Dominate's doing it, and he's winning a lot of games with it. I don't like Ghostblade. Okay. Dominate's doing it like every game. But some people are still going kind of the Maw Ghostblade build. Not a huge fan of that. Yeah, so like it's kind of undercover. A lot of people haven't figured it out yet, but I really do. I'm with Dominate here. I think that Cleaver, Death's Dance is the way to go on this guy, and I think that people are going to figure it out pretty soon. And that's just like massive, massive damage and lifesteal. So take that as you will, but I think he's going to be good on this one, and I think Graves will still be pretty good. Now, Nunu may deserve a spot here. Nunu can be good as a counter jungler. I feel like he just doesn't have enough power. He doesn't have enough teeth a lot of times. Now, he is really good if you have someone that's like a hyper carry on your team, you know, like a Draven that you can blood boil, or a Twitch or something like that. But, you know, if you're sitting there with an Ezreal or a Lucian on your team, I think he just loses so much power. So maybe he deserves to be in the top 5, but Nunu's kind of an honorable mention there. 80 carries, Draven, by far the best. I've been pounding the table on Draven for months. He just does too much damage. He just does an insane amount of damage. He's very, very good early game, and that's what sets him apart from someone like Twitch, who I think is, he's really good too. Both of them are like 1 and 1A. I think Twitch is extremely strong. He just doesn't have the early game that Draven does, and that's why I like Draven more. He synergizes so well with Death's Dance into crit. Like Death's Dance into either Phantom Dancer or Static Shiv into Infinity Edge. It's just massive, massive damage. So I really, really like Draven right now. I think he's super strong. Like, you won't see him in competitive play, and you know, you may not see him in like challenger level play as much because they can predict where his axes are going to land and hit him with skill shots. But I think definitely at Platinum and lower, you could just massacre people, and he is like the 180 carry that Twitch can do it too, but can just absolutely take over a game by themselves. Like, even if your support isn't all that great, or even if your team's feeding like 0-10 or something like that, you can still come back and win with Draven. Has so much damage, he gets so much gold, he scales so well at all points in the game. He's just insane. He's really, really good. Twitch, obviously, if you've ever played against a good Twitch, you know the terror. Like, if he gets ahead, it's just lights out. He does so much damage. He can show up on you. He's always going to get the first shot. He gets to pick his fights, and he can just run around and assassinate anyone who's out of position, which, spoiler alert, is everybody in solo queue, basically. So, you know, a smart Twitch, especially if they have a good support that's getting nice vision and just shutting out enemy vision, can just run around and kill everybody. And if he feels like grouping up, he can just group up and mow down an entire team in a matter of seconds. So he's really good at team fighting. He's really good at one-on-one assassination. He's just great. Heck, his only weakness is early game, is he can get bullied out. So just pair him with Sona. It's fine. Just heal him through a tough early game. Xayah is an up-and-comer. People are finally figuring out how to use her. I think she's ridiculously powerful right now. I think these three all like could legit deserve bans, potentially. But Xayah's just got super long range, really high scaling, especially now that people have gone away from that stupid Blade the Ruined King build. If you go Essence Reaver or Death's Dance on Xayah, or both, why not? Then I think she could be just massively, massively powerful. Like, the zoning presence of those feathers is just so huge, and her range is so good. Her wave clear is so good. So she's extremely strong. I think she's like Kate. She's kind of like Kate with that range, but she just has a little bit more threat, and like area of effect, like powerhouse damage in a fight. Whereas Kate is more like zoning and burst single target damage with her headshots, which is what Kate has become. I think that Kate is still really good. I don't think she's as good as she was. some slight nerfs because of the Hurricane, but realistically, like, you're not going to be team fighting a lot of times with, or you are team fighting, but you're not going to be, like, hitting 3 targets with Hurricane anyways in solo queue. Sometimes you do, but a lot of times you're just kiting backwards, attacking the tank, or some, like, assassin that's trying to dive you in solo queue. So it's not as big of a deal as it was with the Hurricane, but it still is a little bit of a hit to her, so she's a bit lower. Misfortune is just kind of the easy mode, wombo combo, AD carry. So, you know, if you get autofilled as AD carry, that's who I would play. You're always relevant. You just press R in a team fight and just melt people. So just stack up AD on her. And she's a pretty good early game bully too if you use her Q correctly, just to kill minions, bounce them off and hit people. So she's got some nice early game pressure, and she's got some good scaling. She doesn't duel that well later on, but if you just stay with your team and just layer crowd control, like just Misfortune plus Amumu, or Misfortune plus Sejuani, or Misfortune plus Zach, or plus Sona, or Nami. Like, there's so many champions that can set up very well for her ultimate. How are we looking here? Minute 26, and we get to the tier list. Yeah! Or not a minute, hour 26, we get to the tier list. Okay, so let's just go down this really quickly. Not a lot has changed in terms of philosophy and champions, but a little bit has. So I'm just going to explain Sona primarily. I'm going to spend a lot of time with Sona here, and then just kind of go through some of the others. Not much has been shuffled around. Gragas is kind of a new up-and-comer. But let's talk about Sona. So Sona is just overpowered right now. I think that you have to pick her banner. I think that the powering down of Lulu has really empowered Sona to some extent too. Lulu is still really good, but Sona is good against Lulu, especially now that Lulu's shield is much lighter. I mean, that nerf to Lulu's shield... Let me close some of these out. That nerf to Lulu's shield was a pretty big deal. Close some of these. So many tabs. Okay, we'll leave the Sona one up. So I'm just about to talk about Sona. We can close dashboard. But yeah, the nerf to Lulu, pretty big deal. So if we look at... Yeah, her shield is now only 210. It's only a 60% AP ratio, so it used to be 240. So that nerf to the shield means a lot, actually. So now she can't really trade as well, and she doesn't scale as well defensively. She still has the offense early on with the Glitter Lance, and she still has her Whimsy to crowd control people for the polymorph duration, which is really nice. But she doesn't have the defensive steroids that she used to. All she has is this shield and her ultimate, which are still pretty good, but that's a good hit to her shielding in that last nerf. So what makes Sona then... What else makes Sona so overpowered right now? Well, I talked about a lot of this earlier, but let's just look at her raw numbers here just really quickly, and then we'll move on. So some of these AP ratios don't just jump out, and they're not just like, oh my gosh, that's huge. But if you think about it, it kind of is. So she sends out 2 bolts to the nearest 2 enemies. That's only a 0.5, but it's really a 1.0 because 2 bolts are going to hit. It's just not going to hit the same target. So at level 5, this is a 320 damage spell with a 1.0 ratio in a team fight. That's how that reads. So that's pretty massive. And then she empowers your allies to get a bunch of extra damage too. So 60 extra damage on their next auto attack within 3 seconds. Well, if you hit 3 allies with this, this is an additional 180 damage. It's not that hard to hit 3. I mean, just say you hit 2 allies with it. That's 120 damage. You know, with an additional basically 0.4 ratio because it's going on 2 different people. So that's a lot. I mean, that's 120. So now we're talking, if you do your Q in a team fight, that's 320 plus an additional 120. That's 440 damage in a team fight that she's contributing. And if you have any AP, so, you know, if you have, let's just say you have 100 AP from like Ardent Censer and some runes and Let's see, Ardent plus Eye of the Watchers would be 95. So let's just say it's not even like 5 AP in your runes, whatever. You just have a flat 100. That's going to do 420, and then 620 damage off your Q, which is 100 AP. Basically, in a team fight, if you just touch one other person with it and you hit 2 people with your Hymn of Valor. Like, that's so much damage off of that AP, and then you get a 40%, your Power Chord deals 40% more damage. So if you look at Power Chord, now your next basic attack deals this much bonus damage with an additional effect. Now, I'm pretty sure that this bonus damage also applies to just your normal attack damage. So 70 plus whatever this number is at level 9, it's 170. If you have 100 ability power, 170 plus 20 is 190. I'm not sure if it applies to the base attack, but I think it does. Because this just says your Power Chord, your next basic attack does this damage. And this says your Power Chord, it doesn't say the Power Chord's bonus damage, it just says your Power Chord overall. It says 190, 266. So that's a lot of damage. So yeah, just a ton of damage there. Now, if you look at her heal, now this is something that's deceptive, and it took me a while to really catch on to how powerful this is. It was not until I did a coaching session when I talked about this. Because it looks pretty terrible if you look at it just on the base value, right? So it's 80 mana, which is insanely expensive early on, and it's a 35 heal, and you're just like, that's garbage. Even if you heal 2 people, it's only 70, which is bad. But you have to use the shield too. So if you have the shield together, then that's 35 on 2 people is 70. Plus 60 for shield on 2 people, that's 130. So 80 mana for a 130 is not great, but it's not awful. It's okay. Now, if you actually level it up to level 5, then you're going to get 115 times 2 is 230. And then this times 2 is 260, so 230. Yeah. 490 total shielding and healing for 100 mana. Just for reference, I believe Janna's E, I still have Janna pulled up. Janna's E, I think, is 100 mana also. And it only shields for 240 base. So this is 500. It's like 490. Because you get that shield. This shield is not just you and your partner. This could potentially shield up to 5 people. So you could have 5 shields of this for 650 total shield on this. Now, that's in the super rosy scenario. I'm just saying that you shield yourself and your ally who's close by. So I'm just saying 2 people is this. And don't forget that this AP is applying to 2 peoples. That's the equivalent of having a 110 AP ratio. Because you've got 25 times 2 is 50. You have 60 times 2 is 60. That's a 110 ratio. So it has insane AP scaling. So, you're going to get, if you had 100 AP, you'd get an extra 110, 600 even. On a 6-second cooldown. Janna's shield is 10 seconds. So it's a 6-second cooldown. Oh, and don't forget, once you get your level 2 ultimate, you get a free 25% cooldown reduction. So it starts at 4.5 plus CDR. I mean, it gets down to like a 2-second cooldown. So yeah, it's like every 2 seconds you can heal and shield for like 500. What? Like, that's ridiculous. And then, if you have 100 AP, which you will, you're gonna lower the damage output of someone for 3 seconds by 30%. So whichever assassin's trying to do damage to your AD carry, you just lower the damage by 30%. Slap an exhaust on them for another 40%. They're just not doing damage anymore. So this stuff right here is just disgusting. Like, it's so much damage, it's so much shielding and healing, and there's so much like ability power scaling in this that it's just gross. This little bonus movement speed is not great. I mean, it's just not good most of the time. Stand up to 7 seconds if she doesn't take damage. Okay. So yeah, I mean this is the last thing in 2 levels, so it's not great, but it's okay. It does lower movement speed and help you catch people by 40%. So this is pretty weak. It's pretty weak. It's okay, but it's weak. But these two right here are just like obscenely powerful. Like there was one game where I had like Ardent, Censer, Eye of the Watchers, Lich Bane, and like Seraph's Embrace, and I was giving my allies like 170 damage or something like that. Bonus damage off of this. So it's really strong, and her ultimate obviously is really good. Like it does okay damage, okay scaling, but it stuns everyone in a line for 1.5 seconds. So this can be game breaking in a team fight. If you hit like 3 people with this, it's fight over basically. Level 6, you hit the support and the AD carry with this, it's over. So you know, she doesn't have a ton of crowd control, so you have to be very careful how you position. You can reduce the damage on people, and just your overall, like, just the raw numbers are just wrong. They're just flat out, like, overpowered on her in team fights. Especially because, remember, this aura that comes out to give everyone that little shield, it procs wind speakers on every single person, which means they all get the bonus armor and magic resist. And it procs Ardent Censer on everybody, which means they all get the extra on hit and attack speed. So especially on teams where you have champions that benefit from the on-hit and attack speed, obviously your AD carry will, but if you have other champions like Yasuo or like Riven or Fiora, Master Yi, just any number of on-hit champions, then it's good. This also helps you take down Baron extremely quickly because it makes everyone a lot faster with their attack speed. Helps you take towers because everyone gets the extra attack speed once you get Ardent Censer. So she's just insane. She's insane. Like, just for the level of insanity here, I want to say that Sona in my last 20 games is 12-0. I'm 8-0 with Sona. And every time I played against Sona, I lost. I'm 0-4 against Sona. So she was on my team here. We won. I didn't even count this one, I don't think. So that's 1 where Sona won. 2, 3, 4, 5. Lost to Sona. Sona's 6-0 here. We won against Sona here. So she's 6-1. So not 12-0, I guess. I'll have to count this again. So that's 6-1. 7-1. Lost to Sona. 8-1. 9-1. 10-11. 12. Lost there. 13. Lost to Sona there. She's 13-1 in my last 20 games. Like I said, I'm 8-0 with her. But she's 5-1 when the enemy has played against her. I honestly don't know what you pick against her now. I don't know what you play against Sona. Like, you can try Blitzcrank. I guess if you're a good Blitz, like I beat Blitz twice, I think. If you can hit him and you're a good Blitz, I think that maybe you could do that. I don't like Soraka into her. I've tried that matchup twice and I've lost it both times. She just has so much utility that you just can't match. Like, she can almost match your healing as Soraka. Not quite, but close, and she's just a lot safer. Like, Zyra is someone that I used to pick into her, but I just don't think Zyra has the power to cut through. She just doesn't have the scaling. Frankly, I don't know. Like, I don't know what you pick into her, other than like maybe Blitz I think she beats all the other enchanters. I don't think you can do. You definitely can't do Lulu or Karma into her. You can't do Janna. You can maybe try Nami, but I just don't think you're going to be able to keep up once she gets Ardent Censer. I don't know. I don't have a good answer. Like, I think she's virtually unbeatable right now in this meta. And she's getting more popular, but people still haven't quite figured her out yet. I think she's only got like a 5% pick rate or something. I mean, let me see. I mean, I guess you would still go like Zyra and just hope for the best, but yeah, she's only got a 5% pick rate. So get her while she's hot, boys and girls, because she's probably going to be banned next patch. A lot. After that Morellonomicon change. Or not Morellonomicon. Athene's Unholy Grail. So I don't know. And you can build her different ways too. Like, I personally like just going Ardent Censer, Redemption, Locket on this patch. But, I mean, you could also, if you need to, you could go like... And people recommend Tear the Goddess. I mean, I know that Stunt does Tear the Goddess all the time. It is nice, but you're paying 700 gold for just, like, mana, basically, which, once you get, like, Ardent Censer, Eye of the Watcher's Redemption, you shouldn't really have mana problems anymore. But Eye of the Watchers is cute, it is nice, it does late game transition to Seraph's Embrace, so you could go something like Eye of the Watchers, Ardent Censer, like Eye of the Watchers, Ardent Censer, Tear the Goddess earlier, Lichbane, and then Seraphs after that, and then you wouldn't be getting Redemption. Although you could get Redemption if you want to, but I did that in one game where we needed AP, because we had no AP on our team. We had, like, Amumu wasn't building anything AP, he was just building all tank. We had all AD. So I had to do that, and I don't remember what my damage was. I feel like it was pretty good. It was okay. I mean, I did more than Amumu. I almost did as much as Yasuo did. But yeah, so that is a build. That was an accident. I didn't mean to build Eye of the Oasis. I just accidentally bought coin first and just had to roll with it. You shouldn't do that. You should always get Eye of the Watchers. I was just reading chat, not paying attention. But yeah, I think most of the time just going Swifties to help you reposition, then Censer Redemption. Then after that, you can decide what you want. But most games end before you finish that, I think. So yeah, I think that I think she's the top of the class. I think Janna's still really good, particularly if you have an awesome, like, super scaling AD carry like a Draven, a Twitch, Xayah, Caitlyn. I think Janna's good with all of those. That would be if Sona's banned. I mean, I really can't think of any scenarios where you wouldn't just take Sona. But I mean, I guess if they have a ton of dive, just a ton of assassins, like if they have like a LeBlanc, Nocturne, I don't know, just some crazy dive, then maybe Janna would be better. But yeah, I think that Janna is still extremely good. Lulu is good. Lulu's good against assassins. She has good push early, good scaling with Ardent Censer. So Lulu's still pretty good. I just don't put up the results with Lulu. Lulu's just pretty unsafe. Like, you can't really go up and save people from doing stupid things a lot of times. Or you're just going to die. So my win ratio is not fantastic with Lulu. I have played her a lot. I think I'm an okay Lulu player. I think she's much better in higher level play. But I think she's still pretty good. Well, she's the one that gets banned a lot. Yeah, I think Lulu's still top of the class, really good. You know, right up there with Janna and your tier 1. I just think that Sona's better than all of them right now. But I do think that Janna and Lulu are still really good. I think Blitz, I moved him up a lot because he's one of the only answers I can think of to Sona. Like, if you just can't consistently hook her or hook other people before she can heal them, then that is a good way to just close out the game. He's also very good against Lulu, Janna, Soraka, Karma, all of these utility supports. He is the answer if you can land the hooks. Right? So it's a big if. You got to land them. But he can be really powerful. in the right hands. So I think Blitzcrank's strong. Soraka's okay. I mean, Soraka's good against Lulu and good against Janna. She just, I used to like that Sona matchup, but I just don't think I do anymore. Sona just, it does neutralize Sona's early game, her early game aggression, so you can just heal through it. But just the late game utility with that ultimate, and the scaling with Ardent Censer is just so disgusting. Like, you just can't keep up with Soraka. As Soraka, I don't think you can. Karma is another one that I think is really good in higher level play. Like, I think she's really good. They do like mid diamond plus, where people are very organized. I honestly think Sona would take her out though. Like, Sona has similar aggression early on. Sona has a built-in heal. She has similar team fight presence with her ability to proc Ardent Censer. I mean, I guess Karma can proc Ardent Censer with her ultimate shield as well. But I don't know. Definitely Platinum and lower. I feel like Sona's a lot better. But Karma can be very good in higher elos. And then, I mean, Nami, like, next patch, I think Nami will be a lot higher. But for now, I think she's a little bit lower. It's because I think she's going to lose lane. Not lose lane, but she's not going to scale as hard as any of the previous ones. I think they all scale better than she does. Because she just has one heal with her W. It's on a really long cooldown. Like, not really long, but it's like a 10-second cooldown. Which I guess Janna's shield is too. But I feel like Janna's shield is more impactful. And Janna has her ultimate, which also scales with plus healing. So, I don't know. Nami's okay. But I just feel like the previous enchanters are better. I think that Tahm Kench is the highest tank. He's the only tank that I have in tier 2 right now. The reason is he's very good in specific matchups if they have a lot of crowd control, which is kind of rare this day and age. But he's really good into Thresh. He's really good into Leona. He's very good into Ashe. Very good into Lux, Morgana. So, you know, if their team, if they pick something, he's okay into Blitzcrank, but if they pick something like Thresh, Ashe bottom, and you really don't want to run Sona into that because it's just too much crowd control, then you could run Tahm Kench. So I think the Kench is good. I think Kench is going to be great next patch. I think Knight's Vow is going to help him out a lot, as is Locket. And I think if you can exploit the new Zekes, as I think you might be able to do with Tahm Kench by casting his ult and then canceling it, like in the middle of a fight, then I think he could potentially be extremely strong next patch. So we'll see. We'll see. But for right now, I still think he's great. Fiddlestick's the best AP carry or AP support, I think, right now. The reason is he's very good against assassins. He has that 2.25 second fear, especially if Lulu is banned. Fiddlesticks can pick it up. If your team needs a lot of AP damage, he can do that. He pushes early. He's actually decent into Sona because you can catch her out if she doesn't see you coming. If you get some good angles, if you have good vision on her, you can pop over a wall, fear her, and she's just going to blow up. She's so squishy. Obviously, her ultimate's not going to help her out that much if you're already on top of her. So I think Fiddlesticks could be a good pick into Sona, maybe. If you don't push the lane, you're going to get busted up early. But I think that once the mid game comes, if you can survive and you can get good vision on her and catch her out, then she's not going to do a ton to help her team against the Fiddlesticks ult. Especially if you can get her before she gets Redemption and Locket. So Fiddlesticks is pretty good. Zyra is still good. I think she's the best of the rest of AP. She has good lane presence, pretty good scaling with her AP. But, you know, if you don't end the game before 25 minutes, she's just going to lose to Sona, Janna, Lulu, Soraka, Karma. All of these things are just going to overrun her with the plus healing. Because their items are just so much cheaper and they just scale so much harder. By the time you get your Leandries, they're already going to be done with Redemption and, you know, halfway done with Locket. It's just too hard to catch up to them if you don't close out the game quickly, unless you're really, really far ahead. And finally, Nami, I just talked about. She's good. She's a good enchanter. I just think that she gets outscaled by these right now. However, as I said before, once they nerf Karma next patch, and once they introduce that new Unholy Grail, then I think Nami might actually bump up to the top, pretty close to where Sona is. because how powerful she is with her W and how that scales with AP. Right, Sadie? Okay, so best of the rest. Thresh has been winning a lot. I can't really describe like what's up with that. I think that the extra MR that everyone gets naturally helps Thresh out a lot. Otherwise, I don't really know. I think next patch is going to be bad for Thresh because these changes to sort of these hybrid champions that are kind of like want utility stuff but also want tank stuff is going to be rough. Because he's no longer going to be able to get redemption, really, because it's just going to suck if you don't have plus healing, and you don't want plus healing on Thresh. So, right now, he can just go redemption Locket, Face of the Mountain, Ruby Sightstone, and that's a fine build, and he's got some nice initiation. But he's not really going to be able to leverage Knight's Vow that well, because he's only going to get half of the bonus because he counts as ranged. And he might be able to use the whatchamacallit, what is that thing? I'm blanking out. The new Zeke's item could be pretty good with his ult, but his ult has a long cooldown, so it may not be the best. It'll be okay. So he can't really use new redemption. He can't use Knight's Vow that well. He can still use Locket if he stacks a lot of health, which is what he'll have to do. Like he'll probably be doing Face, Ruby, Sightstone, Locket would be his core build. That's only going to have 10% CDR on it, and he wants more CDR than that. I don't know. We'll have to think about Thresh, but right now his itemization is pretty good, and I think it's going to get worse, though, next patch. So we'll see. I mean, if you're really good on Thresh, he could be, you know, S-class, top of the class, but he does have some problems. Oh, someone's asking, who is LS? LS is a Korean caster. If you just look up, like, League of Legends LS, you'll see. He's really smart. I think that he, his people skills sometimes could be polished a little bit, but he's pretty smart. He's very opinionated. He's very arrogant, but he has some intelligent things to say. He's a Korean caster, and he's considered one of the brightest minds in League of Legends. So Thresh is pretty good. Gragas is someone that I just started playing, I think, earlier this week, who's really, I think, has a lot of potential because he doesn't have to play as a full-on engaged tank. He can peel. I think full-on engaged tanks have a hard time right now, like Nautilus. But he does have pretty good wave clear at a distance with his barrel. He does have disengage and engage all built into his ultimate. So, you know, he's very versatile like that. He has another 1-second stun with his E, which is good. And he has some innate healing and tankiness with his W. So I think that I'll have to practice him some more. But if you need to start a fight and you don't want to play Thresh or Blitz, I think Gragas could be pretty good. Could be pretty good, but it remains to be seen. Next patch will be a lot better. He's very, very good with Knight's Vow because he heals back a lot of the damage that he absorbs, you know, from, or that he transfers from the AD carry to you, and he really wants that CDR. So I think the new Knight's Vow change is going to be tremendous on him, and he really loves stacking health too because he gets a lot of health back off of his W, or off of his passive, his drinking. So I think that Locket's going to be really good on him, and I think that Knight's Vow is going to be really good on him. So his build, you know, in 7.12 will probably be something like Face of the Mountain, Ruby, Knight's Vow, Locket. Something like that, and that'll be good. Nautilus, he's still good as an engaged champion. I just don't like engaged champions right now. Like, he's okay. Bard is okay. He just has a real problem with itemization because his E and his ultimate don't scale at all off of anything. Like, they have no ratios. So that's just really bad in a meta that's dominated by plus healing. So his chimes help him out, but he's pretty close range. He's very auto attack reliant. His burst is somewhat low. There just is not a good itemization path for him. I mean, you could go like try to build him AP with like Lich Bane. I don't think so. He's okay. He's a lot of fun to play, but I think there are better options. Rakan, he's okay. He has seen some competitive play. I just think he's kind of like in the Thresh boat where he has a nice kit, but he has an itemization problem where he can't really use Knight's Vow, and he can't really use Relic Shield, which is what he needs. He's just like someone who needs to be tanky to initiate, but he has no defensive steroids because he can't shield himself, and he can't get a lot of the best tank items or really leverage them, like Relic Shield items or like Knight's Vow. So he's just in this really weird itemization spot where like he can be good, but I just think there are better champions in solo queue most of the time. Alistar, okay, has them engage. Same problem as other tanks. He just doesn't have the plus healing, doesn't leverage Ardent Censer that well. It's just going to get crushed by a lot of the enchanters. Vel'Koz does a lot of damage. Has poke. Poke doesn't matter against a lot of the enchanters. They're just going to heal through it. Sona's just going to heal through your poke. Lulu and Janna are going to shield a lot of it. Soraka's going to heal through it. Nami's going to heal through it. So he's okay. I mean, he's all right. Brand, I don't like Brand. If you want to play Brand, I mean, I've had people say, what about Brand? People always think that Brand's so good in bronze and silver. I mean, maybe he is. He's okay. He's fun to play. I like playing Brand. But he's got the same problem as Zyra and a lot of these others where he just, if he doesn't get really far ahead or end the game by 25 minutes, he's going to get murdered by the enchanters. I think if you want to go in AP support, just go Fiddlesticks. He does a lot of damage, and at least he has a lot of crowd control. Like, point click, they're stunned for 2.25 seconds. Well, feared. For 2.25 seconds. And you can silence them for an additional 1.25. So that's 3.5 seconds of they can't do anything with Fiddlesticks, which is very powerful, and that's on like a 7-second cooldown. That's what I'm talking about. That's crowd control. So, and Fiddlesticks has free push too. You just like spam your E on the wave, and it just pushes in. It does an obscene amount of damage to minions. His little crow bounces. So I think Fiddlesticks is just the ultimate like AP push, get to level 6 and make a play type of champion. And his ultimate is a lot more predictable than Brand's ultimate. Like Brand's ultimate, if they spread out or if it just bounces the wrong way or hits minions or whatever, it's just not going to do the kind of damage you want it to do. So Brand can do a lot of damage, and he is a threat in lane, but I just feel like with Vel'Koz and Brand, like they're cool, but I would just play Fiddlesticks, and if you don't want to play Fiddlesticks, just play Zyra. Malachi got nerfed a lot. I talked about that in my patch notes. He might still be viable as like a tank type of thing with just like a little bit of like AP damage with his seeds. I don't know. We'll have to see, but I think he took a pretty big hit. Sejuani, her mana costs are just too high. I don't know why I have her this far up. I need to put her lower. Her mana costs are just too high to be a support. Let's drop her in here. It's like 80 mana, level 1 Q. It's just not happening. Zilean's okay. I'm almost done. What's up?
I accidentally called our daughter Sadie once.
Was she offended?
Oops. No, she didn't seem offended.
She like?
No. I think she was cool with it.
Okay.
She was kind of asleep, so.
Nice.
Yeah. I'm going to bed.
Alright.
No.
I love you. Okay. Zilean's okay. It's a problem of scaling. He has no plus healing, shielding. Really tough to initiate with him. He's alright. I mean, if you consistently land those double bombs, it's good, but I just feel like there are other champions who are going to be better. Braum does see some play in like LCS and things. I'm not a huge fan of him. Like, he is Peel. Like, he's good against Twitch, which is probably why he's played a lot in the LCS. Not a lot, but sometimes. Because he blocks Twitch's entire, like, shot. So not only does it just block a single person from getting hit, but it blocks the entire team from getting hit by Twitch, which is good, but he's okay. I just, once again, I don't like tanks that much. I feel like the enchanters are just going to outscale him. I mean, maybe next patch we'll see. He might be better with some of these other items, but I would either go Tahm Kench if you need a peel or tank to protect from crowd control, and I would only do Braum if they have Twitch, probably. He's pretty good at Twitch. Morgana is kind of in a weird place. I mean, she basically has two abilities. She has Black Shield and she has her Q. In higher level ELO, people are going to dodge her Q most of the time. Black Shield is good if they don't have a lot of burst damage and if they rely very heavily on chaining crowd control. So if you have a Draven or something, or a Twitch is a good example. If you have a Twitch and they're really relying on locking him down with crowd control and he just rolls up with a Black Shield and just melts everybody, that's good. But it's not going to matter if he has the Black Shield and they have, like, you know, a hyper-fed Kha'Zix that jumps on him or something like that. Like, it does offer some protection, but it's not as strong as the enchanters. And then once again, she doesn't scale with any of the good items. Leona, good engage. Terrible if you get counter ganked. Has no reverse gear. Not that great at peeling. She's okay. You know, if you like Leona, I would just play, you know, Nautilus, Gragas, Tahm, Kench, something. Well, Tahm, Kench is kind of different. He's a peeler, not an engager. But I would just play Gragas or Nautilus. But Leona's alright. Galio, he's got good peel. He's okay. He does have some wave clear. It's just, Galio just feels really awkward to me because his E is so telegraphed. It's hard to engage with it. And you obviously can't engage with his ultimate. He's okay. I mean, you could maybe wombo combo him. You know, his ultimate with something else like an Amumu or a Wukong or something like that. But, you know, once again, he's a tank. Doesn't scale with plus healing. Doesn't scale with Ardent Censer. That's a big strike. Trundle is alright. Good at breaking tanks. A lot of people aren't playing tanks. It's okay. Teemo, good harassment. Pretty good poke later on with his mushrooms. He's alright, but I just think there are a lot better options out there. Veigar, high burst damage, but you're probably going to be taking a lot of the kills with Veigar. He can just get smoked by the enchanters in lane. Like, if you land that stun, it's cute, but, like, Sona is just going to rip you up in lane. Or Nami, or Zyra. Like, he's alright. He's just extremely vulnerable with no escapes. Misfortune, pretty good pocket pick into Zyra still, somewhat, but I mean, Sona's good too. Like, Sona can beat Zyra at this point, and Zyra used to be a hard counter to her, so I mean, Zyra's alright, but Misfortune, I think, is a decent 80 carry, but as far as support, ever since they nerfed Black Cleaver and a lot of the lethality items, she lost a lot of her utility. Taric, I hear about sometimes. He just is going to get absolutely mauled in the landing phase. He's pretty good later. He doesn't scale that great with plus healing. It's okay. We'll see next patch. I mean, the beauty of Taric next patch will be he could actually potentially use... I don't know. I mean, we'll see how he is. Like, he might be able to use Locket and Redemption, but that's two different kind of build paths. We'll see. He's got problems. Malzahar, I think, is just garbage right now. I haven't seen one yet, but on paper, as I talked about in the patch notes, it looks really bad. Lux is okay. Can do some burst damage. It's fun. I think there are probably better choices out there. Tier 4, I'm not going to read all these off. I mean, who are some of the notable ones? Sion, I've got way down here. I think he's too telegraphed. He's easy to predict. He's probably okay in lower brackets. I am going to do a Sion guide and do the best that I can, but he still has some problems. He might be better next patch. We'll see. Rammus, you can roam a lot, maybe catch people out. He's going to get murdered in a 2-on-2 laning phase. Sejuani, mana costs are too high. Ivern's potentially okay, but you have no wave clear, and you can't really utilize his passive, which is kind of his whole thing. You know, because you're not going to be able to have smite. So one of Ivern's big things is he can counter jungle so quickly and efficiently, and control, like, the river with Scuttle. Rumble has good wave clear. That's about it. Yeah, the rest of these are not really worth mentioning. I mean, Annie is something that some people like LS have said before. LS, that person that just asked, it stands for Last Shadow. It's Nick de Cesare or something like that. If you look him up, just the person I mentioned earlier. Just type in LS into YouTube, and he's probably the first thing that'll show up. Yeah, this guy. So he looks like that. He's a commentator. He does his old tier list for 7.10. This is why I don't. Huh. Anyways, so he's a very polarizing figure. Some people love him, some people hate him. It's undeniable that he's very smart at the game. It's just he's very, very opinionated, which a lot of people are, which is fine. And then sometimes he's a little like unforgiving and crass to people that have different opinions, but he's okay. But he is a good person to follow and to listen to because he does have a lot of good ideas. Even if you don't agree with him all the time. But he really likes Annie all the time. I think they're better AP champions. Like, Annie is okay if you get really far ahead, but if you fall behind, she's just worthless. And then you've got some other stuff in here it's okay. I haven't tried out Jarvan, Shen, or Hecarim, but I suspect they have some problems on this patch. Jarvan is an interesting one. There just aren't good items for him, really. Like, I mean, I guess you could build him tank. Like, the thing that intrigues me about Jarvan is he has so much armor shred. I've been meaning to try him out. I don't think he would work per se. But against, like, immobile things... What's the cooldown on his ult? Pretty short. Against immobile stuff, he can really force a lot of problems. He has nice, like, bonus AD ratios on some stuff. Yeah, but you can't really build AD as support. Kind of sucks. 10% extra damage. Like, this is pretty spammable. It's got 770 range. It's cheap. It does decent damage. You know, it goes up to 250. And it reduces their armor by 26%, which is big. I mean, that could help your AD carry cut through tanks pretty easily. And you can use it as crowd control. So if you do like a QE combo, you can knock people up for 1 second. A lot of people, you know, anyone that's in the way, which is nice. And it gives your allies extra attack speed, which is good. How long does it stay down? 8 seconds. So you could actually drag twice. I mean, you could drag once and knock people up, and then once this comes off cooldown, if you have a lot of CDR, if it goes down to 3 or 4 seconds, you could drag again and knock people up. Does it not say that? Where does it say the knock up? Oh, here you go. If the lance connects with the standard. Okay, so you could maybe get up a double knock up potentially. But yeah, I mean, this is what intrigues me, is that it has the 26% armor shred, and it has the attack speed steroid for everyone. Gives everyone that extra 25% attack speed. I guess I don't have Nunu on the list, do I? Did I just forget Nunu? Someone was asking me about Nunu the other day. He does have some nice, like his snowball and... I might put him right here. I think I might play Teemo over Nunu. But he does have a nice, like, attack speed steroid. It's just he doesn't scale with Ardent Censer or really anything that's useful. There we go. So yeah, I mean, that's something that I find intriguing. And then, you know, you can trap people in the ultimate, which is really good for holding people for, like, Kennen ults or Misfortune ults or some other stuff. So he's okay. It's just the problem is it's just itemization. It's like, what do you get on him? I mean, you could just get, like, you know, your standard Face the Mountain Ruby, Knight's Vow. Just go for kind of this Shred Disruptor type of thing. I don't know. I mean, it is a pretty engaged doing Flag, Dragon, to Cataclysm. You cover a lot of ground. You know, it's like a 1300 engage range for, like, hard engage. And how is this, like 3.5 seconds? Yeah, I mean, so this could be an answer to get onto something like a Draven or some other things. So I don't know. I could try it out. I think he might be better next patch, but this is intriguing. It gives you a nice shield. So we'll see. So like I said, this is some decent wave clear that you can do. It's okay poke. It has armor shred. You've got some crowd. You've got a little bit of crowd control. You've got an attack speed steroid. Now, if this shielded allies, that would be really nice. But it's not going to do that. Cataclysm. Do I have Kale on here? Yeah, I've got Kale down there. Okay, so we'll see. I mean, like I said, in theory, it looks like he could be decent. I haven't tried it out, but if you want an engaged tank, he could be someone potentially that would be all right. He just has the problem of all engaged tanks right now, which is they don't have great itemization and they can just get blown up easily in solo queue. So I don't know. If I had to put him somewhere, I'd probably put him tier 3, but I just haven't tested him enough yet. I think Gragas is probably my best, like, kind of wacky engaged tank because he has a lot of unique properties to him. But anyways, thank you very much. That's going to be it for the video. I hope you enjoyed it. Sorry, this ended up being quite a long one. I was hoping it'd be shorter, but I had that extra little 30 to 45 minute section here, but I think that's a pretty good section that most people enjoy. So anyways, thank you very much. Have a good day, and I'll see you next time.